beautiful building. It's not the focus of my video today, but when I pass by it, I have to show it some love. This was a Portland General Electric building built in 1906. It's been here, I think, vacant a long time. It sustained some fire damage a while ago, but I always got to show it some love when I'm in this area. And anybody want some mandarin oranges? So I am in Northeast Portland today to bring you a story, one that I took notes on a long time ago, and they've just been sitting there. So it's a historic Murders of Portland episode that has been lying in wait. And all of that said, let's get to it. We're going back to 1910 in a new episode of Historic Murders of Portland. So this house dead ahead across the street was built in 1906, which means in 1910 it was here, a fairly new home. This is the home where a man named Charles Pottage lived, who worked in construction and generally regarded as a really well-respected individual, good at his work. He didn't drink. And he generally got things done. He's a very productive man, again, by all accounts. And by the end of October 1910, he had been commissioned to do a construction job a little ways east from where I am right now, at 10th and Brazzy in Irvington. He was commissioned, agreed to do the job, and he was doing it on behalf of the company he worked for, and that meant that, his company had control over it, and so that meant that he didn't just necessarily have his own crew to do work. Some of the people that were going to work on his construction project were going to be people brought in by the company, and that's the main crux of kind of establishing what was allowed to go wrong in this story, which was kind of an outsider. Work was outsourced to an outsider that was brought in to work on this project, and it did not work out well at all. We are now in beautiful Irvington. I've always said, if there's any part of the city I'd want to live in, if there was no restrictions, it would be Irvington. And the next street up is 10th Avenue. We're going to turn south when we get there. So this intersection right here, this is Northeast 10th and Brazzy. Always had to correct myself, but near this intersection, I think the work was specifically along 10th, so it would have been like right here or just across Brazzy on that side over there. But Charles Pottage was commissioned to do some work here, and the company he worked for, he didn't do this, but the company he worked for hired a guy named Frank Porter to specifically operate a steam shovel for them. So it's October 31st, it's Halloween, and the work is not really going great. Pottage is getting frustrated with Frank Porter, who apparently is being very quick and very reckless with his steam shovel, and the news report said that like he hit multiple wagons, which, because it's 1910, so there weren't a lot of cars around, but he was hitting like multiple wagons with his steam shovel and just generally causing a ruckus. And I guess he brought a crew with him that were also just being very lackadaisical on the job. And so it started becoming a point of contention. These guys were hired to do a job, and they were just fouling the whole thing up. I've already had like 2 people come out and, oh, I'm dark. Hello. I've already had like 2 people come out and take a look at me. Like, what are you doing on our street videoing? It's Irvington, I love it, but it does give off major, like neighborhood watch kind of vibes. But, so as things are progressing, or I guess in this case not progressing, an argument finally ensues, which was inevitably going to happen. And Frank Porter throws a big hissy fit and quits. But before he leaves, he sabotaged the steam shovel. Just completely took a situation that he was making worse and then proceeded to make it even worse than that. Sabotaged the steam shovel and then took off. So work's getting delayed. Charles Pottage is probably pissed. I mean, this is the project that he's presiding over. Now he doesn't have a steam shovel operator, and even if he did, the steam shovel's all messed up. So they had to try to get that fixed up. And he quickly reached out, said, I need help. The guy that you hired for me was an absolute joke. And they bring on a guy named George Wellman to pick up the steam shoveling duties. And interestingly enough, one of George Wellman's first, I guess, responsibilities, it seems like he willingly took it on himself, was he stayed here with the equipment. Because it was Halloween night, they were worried that some kids, some pranksters, might come out and mess with their equipment, which was already messed up enough. And also there was concern that Frank Porter might come back and do some more damage. So George Wellman, who's just been hired on to this job just to operate a steam shovel, he now is given the responsibility of staying here overnight to make sure their stuff doesn't get messed with. So the following day, the workers come back to this site here, and they're just about to get started, and who of course shows up but Frank Porter. And he's angry. What happens is people get pissed in the moment, and then they quit their job, and then they go home and have time to think it over. And when you're sitting there alone thinking about stuff, it's real easy to convince yourself that you are the victim. So Porter comes back, and he brings a guy with him. I gotta look it up. A guy by the name of Joseph Kruber, who was living with him and his family. So he brings this guy as like backup. He shows up, he's pissed, he's enraged, he's raising a big ruckus. And what's really kind of dumb is that he makes the claim that because Pottage wasn't the one who hired him, but rather the company Pottage worked for hired him, that Charles Pottage had no authority to fire him. But the thing was, Frank Porter quit. He wasn't fired. I mean, I'm sure if he just got angry and stormed off and chose not to say, oh, I quit, I'm sure Pottage would have contacted the company and said that, hey, like, this guy's, like, hitting people on the street here. He's, like, hitting their wagons. He's, him and his crew are sucking at their job, and now he just threw a hissy fit and stormed off when I tried to hold him to task for what he was doing. I'm sure the company would have been like, well, screw him then. Sorry about that. We'll get you a new person out there who's actually going to do the job they were hired for. So things start escalating. It's a lot of back and forth, arguing, and all of a sudden, things escalate to the point, as they often did like this back then, that Porter pulls a gun. Now the thing is, this is 1910 Portland. Just about everybody walking the streets had a gun on them. So when Frank Porter pulled a gun, Charles Pottage pulled a gun of his own, ultimately. So you know, now things are really escalated. Frank Porter standing there with a gun, you know, looking unhinged, and his buddy Joseph Kruber is pressuring him really hard to just shoot Charles Pottage and walk away, I guess. Like he's saying, do it, shoot him. So Charles Pottage has got a gun pointed at him, and he's got another guy encouraging the guy with the gun to shoot him. So he's frantic and panicked. And in the excitement of the situation, he fires and hits Frank Porter. And what's interesting is Frank Porter actually initially pulled a gun on George Wellman, like, "Oh, take my job, will ya?" And it's like, well, you quit. So what did you think was what did you think was gonna happen? And so that's the story that Charles Pottage gives, is that he just kind of freaked and opened fire. Considering the circumstances leading up to this, I tend to lead towards trusting Charles Pottage's story a little bit more. I mean, I wouldn't trust any story that Frank Porter would have given. He obviously couldn't give it because he was shot down, boom, dead right there. But that's the official story. Now, is that really what happened? Did Charles Pottage was he maybe, you know, because he was packing heat with him, was he maybe prepared on the outside? Like, Frank Porter shows up and raises a stink, I'm going to put him down. Maybe. I don't know. What I'm getting at was this an innocent accident that was triggered primarily by the actions of Frank Porter and his buddy that he brought along, and even Charles Pottage said that he felt if anybody was really responsible for this, it was this Joseph Kruber guy, because he was the guy that was saying, yeah, do it. He held him more responsible than Frank Porter for why he did what he did, and I guess that makes sense. But also, maybe it's a lucky shot, but what makes me wonder just a little bit if maybe Charles Pottage was ready. Like, he was like, this guy comes back and raises a stink, I might just put him down. Again, the implication is that he panicked and he was scared for his life, and he just, you know, the gun went off. That story. But the shot he fired, which apparently was just instinctive, like, oh, I don't know what to do, you know, that was kind of seems to be the circumstances. He hit Porter right here, right in the middle of the head. It was like a perfect shot. So, for somebody who's like panicking and not knowing what to do, and, you know, goes boom, it was a perfect shot. Now, there's not a whole lot of information on this case. I didn't really see how many other workers were there, how many other workers may have witnessed stuff. Never really saw what Kruber or Wellman, who were standing right there, had to say on the matter, whether their accounts differed from Charles Pottage or not, and whether the story that he was telling was accurate, that this was not intended and really triggered by Frank Porter and his buddy. But from what I know, again, about Charles Pottage, is he had a glowing record. He didn't drink, which is impressive for that period of time. Seems like he was a little bit of a teetotaler. Maybe he wasn't to that extent. And after the shooting, he immediately went and turned himself in. He didn't try to run. He didn't, you know, point the gun at somebody else and be like, I'll take down whoever tries to stop me, see? He immediately went to the police station and turned himself in and was fully cooperative immediately after. Now, one of the things is, all of the information that I found is all from around the 2 to 3 day period surrounding this story. I didn't find any articles discussing what happened afterwards, in terms of, like, did this guy go on trial? I think it would have been pretty easy for Charles Pottage to stake the claim that this was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. I only pulled my gun because Frank Porter did. Frank Porter instigated all of this hostility. He failed at his job and then came back crying like a child and then pulled a gun on me first. And he even had a friend there that was pushing him to do it. If I'm standing there and I'm pointing a gun at a guy and they're pointing a gun back at me and they look raged, they look ready to go, and they already have a bone to pick with me, and they got a guy standing with them that's telling them to just do it, I don't know, I might have panicked and shot him too, without any intention. And honestly, you know, there's a lot of murder cases I've covered in this series, and a lot of times people say it was an accident, I didn't mean to, the gun just went off, and usually it's just a bunch of nonsense. But a lot of times, the people that are saying that are not people with glowing reputations who have a gun unwarranted pointed right at them, forcing them to react in some way. So, you know, this is a rare instance where I think probably, you know, under the circumstances, Charles Pottage just panicked and fired, and that was what went down at 10th and Brazzy back in 1910. Specifically on November 1st. I didn't say the date that the murder happened. I figured it would be implied that the night before was Halloween, October 31st, so the following morning would be November 1st. But yeah, that's the story of the shooting of Frank Porter. Again, probably accidental. That happened November 1st, 1910. Up here in Irvington, where the air smells so sweet. Actually, oh, it smells like broken egg. 'Cause there's a broken egg on the sidewalk. So anyway, as always, thank you so much for stopping by today, taking a little time to take in my video. If you're new to the channel or haven't gotten around to it yet, remember to like, share, subscribe, all those little things that help my channel grow. I also have a Patreon that I'm trying to get to grow a little bit more. And if you want to help me out that way, the link to that is in the description with this video, along with the links to my Facebook, Instagram, Reddit subreddit, and my TikTok as well. Uh-oh, somebody's in trouble. They got the bright green tag on the truck. Nobody in the city wants that. Anyway, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Until next time, this has been Steve the Amateur Historian.